It's showtime, Dr. Kris. How are you today?
Good on a rainy day in Texas, huh? Rainy
Yep.
Tuesday in Texas.
It's raining where Dr. Kris is. It's raining where I am. That's always welcome in Texas. How are things going?
Good. And like you said, you never want to say no to rain in Texas because once it
No.
stops, it usually stops. So, but no, all's good.
You getting ready for vacation?
Yep. 2 weeks and 2 days away. Not that I'm counting down.
Nice. So today we're talking about peptides and the various things that it can do to help your health. I'm going to roll the intro and we'll get to work. If you're like most folks Dr. Kris Fusterhausen works with, you're active, you want to take ownership of your health, and you want to age gracefully. The problem is there is so much conflicting information out there about health and wellness, it's tough to know who to trust. Most providers are limited by what insurance will approve, so it can seem like they're only able to help you manage your health decline with more meds. On the Dr. Kris Life Podcast, you'll learn how you can regain your confidence in your health journey. You'll learn helpful knowledge about programs, supplements, peptides, and hormones that Dr. Kris has used with thousands of patients just like you to help them crush their goals and be their best selves. So if you're ready to take charge of your health and are wanting to stay active and healthy so you can be a better parent, partner, or lover, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Dr. Kris Podcast. Dr. Kris, your hair's looking good, by the way.
Hey, thanks for that intro. I was about to say, with our intros, we've had the evolution of like my hair, and now I notice we have the evolution behind my backdrop.
Yeah,
because I've been trying different things, and so anyway, I was watching Dr. Greg Jones. He's a good friend out in Arizona. We were actually talking about him a minute ago, and he has this really cool backdrop, and I was like really envious of it. So I was like, I've got to get me something like that. So anyway,
Dr. Kris has backdrop envy.
I did backdrop envy. Exactly.
Who knew that when you started doing your practice that you would actually enjoy showing up and having conversations and live streams and podcasts and now you're speaker at conferences, etc. Was that in the cards when you took off on this journey?
No, heck, I was actually talking to somebody the other day. The one thing I still don't do a good job of is social media, and it's something I'm working on, trying to do better. Luckily, I've got people who attach me to their social media a lot of times, which makes me look good. Thank God. Thank you, New Bio Age. Shout out for doing a lot of my social media for me. But like, who would ever dream that like social media would be part of your practice? And as I will admit, that's the part of my practice I don't enjoy, but it is necessary. I enjoy podcast. I enjoy speaking. I don't enjoy social media so much. But yeah, back in the day, and still to this day, your traditional doctor is kind of that old saying, hang a shingle and go to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get on insurance plans, and those insurance plans drive patients to you. But at the same time, you kind of lose your autonomy with that model because you are kind of a slave to the system. And, as I always say, you don't really work for your patients many times in that scenario. You work for the insurance companies, because ultimately they dictate how you practice, right? Which is why we love the cash pay model, which I self-admit isn't for everyone. But I think there's luckily we market to a small percentage of people, but luckily that percentage is enough of people who see the value in medicine that's not predictated on what you can or can't do.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Dr. Kris, because today we're talking about the power of peptides, unlocking your body's natural healing potential. But the thing that stings is that the folks that come to you and work with you, they take ownership of their part of their health journey. They're not just coming to you for your prescription and one and done, see you later. You keep doing the same thing. We'll see you next year for your checkup. That's not what this is about. This is about figuring out what's best for you, what gives you energy in your cells, and how everyone is different. But the power of peptides is something that a lot of people don't maybe they're familiar with you put them on your skin, or they're in some kind of lotion or beauty product. But there's a lot more involved in it when, or options that you have when they come to work with you.
Yeah, agree with all of that. You know, we didn't even plan the intro, but you actually did a great job, a great segue into the fact that, even what we do now is somewhat under attack. And, even though we're in this industry where we feel like we can do anything, it's under attack as well by the FDA and some other things. Luckily, we do feel like this industry is headed in the right direction with some of the political changes that have occurred. And I'm not even trying to get political on like actual political stuff. It's just that the FDA is being reeled in, hopefully, just a little bit. Because even that right to really do what you want to do with your own health is being somewhat compromised by recent rulings and things like that. And that kind of takes us into peptides, because I feel like peptides has become a buzzword, kind of like organic, or fat free or something like that. You hear it all the time, but you may not completely, like I always joke, I love when a candy says a fat free candy or something like that. Like, okay, organic candy, like, okay, I guess that's better than if it's non-organic candy, but at the end of the day, it's sugar. But peptides has become so generalized now, right? Like you really can't watch. I don't know if people watch commercials anymore. I don't find myself watching them very often, but if you do, it's not uncommon to hear a peptide, some sort of advertisement, right? It's just like you can't get in your truck or car and drive around on terrestrial radio and not hear a testosterone ad at some point if you listen to a couple commercial breaks. But I think still a lot of people don't know what a peptide is. They just hear the word peptide. Sounds good, right? The term peptide sounds pretty amazing. And for the most part, it is. Peptides are nothing more than chain amino acids. They're signaling agents, as you and I have talked ad nauseum about in the past. They basically turn on functions or turn off functions in our body. And many times these functions that we're working on with peptides are functions that have just with age have deteriorated. They don't work as well as they used to. Many of these peptides, and we have over 7,000 naturally occurring peptides in our body. And as you and I have joked many times, anything good in the body seems to decrease as we age. And so many times with peptides, all we're doing is trying to augment those things in the body to make those functions better. And then in the process, most of us believe that peptides are extremely safe. That's the good news. Access is becoming more of a problem. When you hear these commercials, many times these are just commercially available products. Most of the time, the peptide percentage in these products are very low. One of the big things that with access becoming more difficult, one of the things we're noticing with patients is they're reaching more for these peptides on websites that you don't have to see a doctor. You just go on a website, buy something. And I do caution my patients to be very, very careful with that, because we just don't know the quality, the purity of those products. Sounds good in theory, but it's sometimes difficult to guarantee you're getting a quality product. So what do peptides do? As I always say, we have peptides that, can do simple things like give you a tan. We have peptides that can heal body parts faster. We can have peptides that, as you and I have joked about, that might put a little more hair on your head, that might make your libido a little better, and that might make your sexual function a little bit better, that might burn more fat and build more muscle. That might make your brain work a little bit better, that might protect your brain from neurodegenerative disorders. Really, I always joke and say if there's a condition, there's probably a peptide that can at least augment that condition to possibly help. So peptides can do so many different things. There's a handful of peptides that I always say when I talk to new providers wanting to get into this industry, I always say, hey, pick 3 or 4 peptides that really call to you, that really you understand, that you can understand how you can use them in your practice. And many times you don't have to have a vast catalog of peptides to really help patients. It can be just some of the very simple ones that can really help patients.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a few little changes that make a big improvement. And these peptides can offer that for you. There are, I take several of them. One of them is BPC, which is oral.
Mhm.
And this is a great way that you can start managing managing symptoms or things that you would normally just accept. Oh, that's with age, but you don't have to accept that. You can adjust and make lifestyle changes and consider these as well.
Yeah, agreed. And what's really cool, I was thinking about this the other day, is and by the way, I love biohackers. There's a lot of doctors that get annoyed by biohackers. I think they're great. They've done nothing but expand our field of medicine, right? Like it's things that we, as doctors, we can talk about, but we just don't have the platforms that some of these biohackers have. And I'm very thankful for them because, they go out and they talk about things like BPC, and all of a sudden they start something that was just 5 years ago so unusual, or you were made to feel like you were doing something wrong nearly. Now it's becoming mainstream to where I mentioned BPC, and instead of getting befuddled looks, now you're like, oh yeah, I've heard about that. Or yeah, I listened to a podcast on Rogan about BPC or Gary Brecka or something like that. And I think that's really cool. I really do. I love it when my patients educate themselves. I just always say, be careful where the education comes from. Not everything's accurate, but as long as most of my patients come with pretty good data. BPC. So what is it? I always say BPC is made in the gastric juices of our stomach. It does many things, but if we really boil it down, I like to put it into three pots. It's extremely good for our gut health. So it can reduce reflux disease. It can, improve overall just GI function, basically get rid of, the bad gut health that so many of our patients have. It's an amazing a peptide for the brain. And so it can do so many things, help with neuroprotection, and really and truly can be used in all types of neurologic disorders. I think it's an amazing peptide. Like, I really recommend it in my patients who are we deal with a lot of rodeo guys. I think it's an amazing peptide to help heal their brains, to help protect their brains. I mean, these are guys that are riding bucking horses and bulls, and obviously taking severe trauma to micro trauma every buck. You think a middle linebacker takes a beating? These poor guys take a real beating for 8 seconds, multiple times a week, right? And then it helps heal those ligaments and tendons and bones. So it's just an amazing peptide that has an extremely clean side effect profile. Now that it's over the counter, it can be really amazing, as you know, and we can talk about it if you want. We combined it with things now to do even more things. So yeah, BPC is one of those cores. Like I tell patients, vitamin D, you should really just take vitamin D for the rest of your life. I think BPC is right there in that the same line as vitamin D.
Yeah, so you think about you'll see a lot of those biohackers or folks promoting good health. You start with your gut, you get your digestive system in order, your proper bacteria, et cetera, and that you got brain health, your skin. It impacts so many things, and that's just a great basic over-the-counter solution that can make a big difference.
Yeah, and as we've talked about before, we've got 3 different formulations of this, which makes it really nice. All 3 formulations have BPC, and so that's nice. But if somebody comes in and they really, really have specific gut health issues, like, Dr. Kris, my problem is really just my gut. I'm going to the bathroom too much. I'm not going enough. I've got a lot of reflux disease or stomach burning. We really like what we call Gutides, which is actually BPC combined with an amazing gut-specific peptide called KPV. And so the Gutides, as the name says, gut peptides, it's going to be specifically geared towards your gut health. So you're getting the best of both worlds there for the gut. And we do gut health testing here, GI mapping, which we can look and see what all kinds of good and bad bacteria grow in your gut. But this is a great place to start for patients with poor gut health. And let's be honest, vast majority of Americans have some form of uh, uh, you know, gut issues. It's very, very infrequent that we have healthy guts. It comes from the stress that we're under. It comes from the diet that we eat in America, and so gut tides is a great, great place to start for those patients. As you see there on your screen, BPC is just straight BPC. That's typically what I recommend for a patient that is maybe going to be geared towards maybe true joint issues. Maybe they're very specific for brain protection. So in that case, I really like for those true like arthritic patients, possibly just straight BPC. The newer product that we have now that is, and I think last time it wasn't on the website. Look, they got it there. Is called Regenitides, and Regenitides is a unique product because it is BPC combined with fragmented TB4. And I don't think you and I have talked about TB4 in a while,
No.
but TB4 is a thymus peptide that does a really good job of muscular healing. So the really nice thing about this is we could make a case in those patients with acute musculoskeletal injuries that the combination Regenitides will be a better choice for that patient because TB4 is more specific towards musculoskeletal healing versus ligament, tendons, and bone. So like somebody who is literally in a car wreck, Regenitides is probably going to be the one that's better for you. As I tell my rodeo guys, you're in a car wreck for 8 seconds every night. And so BPC, again, I would still more specifically kind of gear that towards maybe the degenerative disc disease patient, maybe your chronic arthritic patient. Maybe we're going just after brain protection. I would go BPC. If it's pure gut health, I would go more along the lines of the gut tides. And then if we're going more along the lines of an acute musculoskeletal injury, I would go along the lines of the BPC and TB4. So New BioAge makes those products. The great thing is that TB4 in the past it's just companies have been unsuccessful in being able to truly get fragmented TB4 in a way that it actually does anything orally. But New BioAge has pulled it off. We're seeing really good results with Regenitides. So we're excited now to be able to offer our patients kind of slightly different versions of BPC so that we can get even more selective in those patients. The nice thing is they're over the counter. My staff is well educated on them to help guide patients on those over-the-counter products. You don't technically have to see us to get those supplements that we just talked about.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that something so powerful is over the counter. A lot of these peptides, when you were talking about fighting headwinds here in the States on these peptides, due to the FDA, et cetera, if you're in Europe, a lot of these are just easily available, and they've been around for a long time. I want to say this and then turn you loose again, but these originated in the veterinary world, like in 1901 or something. They've been studied for so long.
Yeah, peptides have been around forever. I mean, the peptide that every person knows, they just may not know it's a peptide, is insulin. Insulin's a peptide. Okay. So when I have doctors who are really new to this and they're like, I don't know about it, I'm like, yeah, you do. You've been prescribing peptides for decades. It's called insulin. That is a peptide. And so, like I say, they are now, I would say that peptides should always be used under the guidance of a trained professional, because just like I always say, water can be dangerous if you drink too much of it or not enough of it. Even things that are very healthy can still be somewhat dangerous, but the good news is that it is minimal. When used properly, they can be very successful, very low side effect profile. I always joke penicillin has a side effect profile, right? I mean, everything has a side effect profile, but we're really lucky in the peptide industry, how safe they are. Of course, there's amazing peptides out there that we won't go down the path too much, but help you with your appetite and not make you eat as much and retrain the brain. And there's been lots of successful nats. It's just, it's really, really awesome in 2025 that peptides have become so mainstream. It's just the negative of the fact that they're, constantly, I feel like there's a new battle in the peptide industry by big pharma and the peptide industry to try to somewhat limit it or tamp it down. And my big fear is it's just sending patients to websites to buy these things because the providers are having a more difficult time getting them. And I'm just worried about the quality of the peptides that are out there. Then patients are getting peptides with no dosing. They're just kind of trying to figure it out and wing it. I just, hopefully there will be some form of a good resolution of this down the road to protect the industry, I guess is what I would say.
So BPC stands for body protective compound. What are maybe some other peptides that could be considered if they were to someone listening wanted to come and meet with you and take responsibility in their health journey? What are some other ones that come into play?
Well, like one of them that if we stay more on the aesthetic side that we really like is actually called topical GHKCU. And topical GHKCU is actually a product that decreases lines and wrinkles and increases collagen elasticity. So it's an awesome topical that again is over the counter. And so those are nice whenever you have those things that we have topical peptides that are over the counter that can actually some people have termed it Botox in a bottle. I don't like that term because it makes some providers freak out and think that their Botox practice is going to dry up. It's not that good. It's a nice augmentation of Botox because I'm a great example. I've been getting Botox, don't mind admitting it, for 20 plus years. Well, now that I'm in my 50s and with sun damage, I'm actually, despite Botox, starting to get some lines and wrinkles. And that's where the GHKCU can come in to augment my Botox. Nothing is going to keep our skin perfect as we age. As we get into our 50s, 60s, and 70s, there will be lines and wrinkles and sagging and laxity issues. If I was wanting to say laxative, laxity issues. And that's where like a topical peptide like GHKCU can come in. So again, we love and then believe it or not, then there's peptides over the counter that we have that can help with hair. And so, GHKCU topical for the scalp does a really good job of increasing diameter and thickness of the hair. We have a peptide called PDD-DBM that actually will cause hair follicles to start regrowing hair. And so, these are, again, over-the-counter topical peptides that really, really help. Zinc thymolene. That's a peptide that you can put on your hair that actually, believe it or not, decreases graying. So some of the ladies like that because they're not having to go get their hair done or at least their hair, colored as much. And so, really, there's amazing peptides out there, kind of going back into prescription, again, some of the big players are peptides that can help like growth hormone secretagogues that can help you with body composition. So let's go backwards for a split second and let's go back to those two hormones. We've had this discussion before, but I think it's always good to bring it back up. Mm-hmm. So many times what my patients are looking for, at least I think they should be looking for, is muscle growth and fat burning. Okay. So we always say anabolic to muscle. Anabolic means growth. Catabolic to fat, meaning destruction. Okay. So we want to destruct fat, build muscle. I feel like it's one of the core pillars of wellness. As you know, as I've said, I don't feel like wellness needs to be made all that difficult. I think for the most part, if we follow some core pillars of health, we're going to do very, very well as we age. So what are the two hormones that actually, as my son always says, the fun fact, the two hormones that actually build muscle and burn fat at the same time? Well, testosterone. Okay. And so, you and I've talked, we've had many of a podcast talking about the benefits of testosterone replacement therapy in men and women. The other one is growth hormone. So, whenever you're really going after somebody's fat burning and muscle growth, it's important that you think about, hormone replacement potentially if they need it, TRT, and also optimizing growth hormone levels if that's a problem as well. And so, we have growth hormone peptides. And so The sad thing is it's a vicious cycle. And I lectured on this a few months ago. As your visceral fat goes up, and you and I've had a lot of talks about visceral fat, how visceral fat, the fat around our organs and our belly, cause tons of inflammation. Inflammation is the root cause of most chronic disease. So we've already talked about how growth hormone and testosterone help burn fat and build muscle. The problem is, as you get more visceral fat, guess what it does? It has a negative feedback on growth hormone production. So the more visceral fat you get, the less growth hormone production you have. The less growth hormone production you have, the more visceral fat you produce. And you get into this vicious cycle. Like I always joke, you see the guy that comes in with the big old belly that you look like you could cut him open and it would just pour out fat. They get into this vicious cycle and it's hard to break. And that's where, currently we have like GLP-1s that help those patients, but growth hormone peptides is something to be thought about in those patients, because optimize that growth hormone level. You're again just giving those patients that ability, putting the tools back into their favor, that their body starts working with them instead of against them. As I always say to a lot of my new patients, you're doing some of the right things. Unfortunately, your body's working against you, not with you, which really stinks. As I always say, somebody who's working really hard, but their body's just not working with them, that kind of sucks. Because they really are trying hard. Like, why am I exercising? Why am I eating better, but I'm not losing fat? A lot of times it goes back to those labs. It goes back to specifically coming up with a plan that we can stick to. So really, a lot of times patients will come in and they say, "Hey, I'm here for a peptide consultation." I go, "What does that mean?" I try to make it lighthearted, but I'm like, "Hey, I don't know what that means. Like, why don't you tell me what you're really wanting to work on? Let's start there." Like, instead of like a peptide consultation, because we could talk for 3 hours about this peptide and that peptide. What is it you're trying to work on? What are your goals you're trying to achieve? The good news is most of the time my patients come in with reasonable goals. They're like, "Hey, I want to burn some fat. I want to build some muscle. I want to be better in the bedroom. I want to put some hair on my head. Whatever." As I always say, if it's reasonable and we can do it, then great. We'll talk about how to get there. So again, just simple plans, usually nothing usually too exotic with these patients, just a matter of having good starting points and good follow through.
And generally it's a little more comprehensive. It's not just here, take this one thing and all of that will fall in line. You're addressing several things that work in coordination to help them make the changes, but it's a lifestyle change as well. And they have ownership in that relationship. They have to step up and be accountable in some ways.
Yeah, and I don't want to be too cheesy, but it's like an orchestra. It's not just the French horns that make the orchestra grow, right? You gotta tune everybody in. But again, a lot of times these are some fine tuning that you do. There's the core pillars that we have to address. And once we've got those core pillars addressed, then it's what works for Susie may not work for Steve. And it's just a matter of, again, rotating things. Big fan of rotating things. I think that the body will adapt to a lot of things if we just do the same thing over and over. Like fasting, like I always say, it's great to fast. Love fasting, but it's okay you need to break that schedule every now and then. Like I actually ate breakfast this morning. I was really hungry. I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to eat breakfast this morning. Hey, let's go for a 24-hour fast every now and then. Let's go for a 48-hour fast, 72-hour fast every now and then. Let's change the schedule up. Let's eat breakfast and lunch for a couple of days, not lunch and dinner." Like, you got to keep the body guessing. I do feel like the more that you rearrange things, the better off your body will do long term. As I've told you, you can do the most kick-ass workout that I damn near died. Say, like, that workout nearly killed me. If you do it every day for the next month, there will be a day where you go, that workout's not that hard anymore, right? And so then you're not getting the same benefits when that workout doesn't become hard again. So it's just a matter of changing things up. as when I deal with a lot of new providers in this industry, and I say, don't make this too complicated. You just, there's core pillars, you follow them, you do that, and then you mix in some of these other things. As long as you got a provider that knows what they're doing and knows what to monitor, and the quality of the peptides is there, you'll have good success.
All right. Well, we covered this topic really well. Those peptides and lifestyle changes, all things need to be considered. But I think the thing that helps people feel like this is the right place to be is that you're not promoting one silver bullet, one thing that will change it, like you see on TV or the commercials, etc.
Yeah, and I would, if anybody's listening to this and they're thinking about maybe coming to us, I would say that, if you feel like what I'm saying resonates with you, then great, come on in. Like we want patients to be a fit. We want them to be a fit for us, and we want to be a fit for them. We're really blessed with our patients that we have, but we want patients to feel comfortable with us. I help patients. Like, I'm not a big chronic disease guy. I like to prevent chronic disease. As we've talked about my background, I worked in the county clinic here for 15 years dealing with the sickest of the sick patients. What I really like to do is I like to really hammer home prevention. I really like to help patients get in their best shape. I really like to help patients age as slowly as possible. That's what I like to do. That's what gets me up in the morning and keeps me going and helps me learn things. I'm not the Lyme's disease guy. I'm not the mold guy. That's just not what I personally like. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not saying, and I have great providers I can send patients to. It's just not my field. I help patients who are feeling their age feel better. I help slow down aging. And I help patients hopefully live a much better quality of life. That's what we do here. And we're trying to always chase and stay as current as we possibly can. If anybody's listening, I'm blessed enough that I get to lecture all over the world, multiple times a year. I'm blessed enough to be around some of the most brilliant physicians, podcasters, biohackers out there. Not saying I know it all, but we try to stay as current as we can and help our patients. As I say what I say today, I may say something different tomorrow. If we learn something new, we're going to learn something new. Great fun fact. Dr. Yurth posted this the other day. They've proven now if you eat an egg a day, you've got like a 40+% chance less of getting Alzheimer's disease. One egg a day. And so, simple things like not believing the bullshit that was spewed years ago about how eggs were going to be the downfall, right? Now we're all out there touting, everybody's got chickens because we all know now eggs are good for us. And so, it's just helping patients navigate a lot of this BS that's out there and, helping them age gracefully.
All right. So if you want to connect with Dr. Kris, it's the researchclinic.com, sharing the URL there on the screen. You can connect there, fill out a form, set an appointment. What's it look like from there? You come in, you're going to start poking and prodding. What's the deal?
Yeah, usually you're going to start with one of my ladies just walking you through, seeing what your goals are, what you're wanting to do, and then we're going to walk you through that process. Usually that process does start with labs, drawing blood typically, unless a patient already has current labs or something like that, which is unusual. So it usually starts with labs. And then we just set those up with myself or one of my providers, depending on what it is, what we're trying to do. And then we just kind of go from there. And then we take it from there and just lead you through the process.
Yep. Just take the labs, do the audit, make a plan, start working the plan.
Yeah. If I could throw one more thing, and I tell all my patients, when you come in to see us, you've committed to nothing. You've committed to blood work. You've committed to a consultation. That's all you've committed to. Okay. We're not the clinic that's going to say before you even come in, you got to commit to 17 visits or something like that. I always say you've committed to nothing. You've committed to a visit, a blood draw, and that's what you've committed to. After that, we'll see where it goes.
You might want to start thinking about committing to intermittent fasting. Just getting that out there now.
Yeah. You better get ready for that talk, right?
All right. Great episode, Dr. Kris. I'm going to play the rollout. Anything you want to You want
No,
to
I
move?
just hope everybody has a great May, and wherever you're at, get active. It's that time of year to everybody get more active and get your beach body ready if you're going on vacations.
Sun's out, buns out. Here we go. Thanks for joining the Dr. Kris Podcast. If you learned something today and you want to connect and get more information, visit our website, www.drkris.life, where you can find more great information or even schedule a time to learn how you can engage with Dr. Kris. Be sure to follow, like, share, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Dr. Kris Podcast. Man, you got me hungry for lunch.
Oh, my stomach's eating my backbone right now.
All right. Great show. Good job.